I think it's power, it's corruption, it's control. It's all those things that run this sewer we call Washington, D.C. If they were to come out, say they were, if the Tic Tac videos, for instance, if you watch those, there's no heat signature. You know, you have something that's capable of some incredible aerodynamics that defy all of our current rules and laws that we know. The Pentagon would be out of business. We wouldn't be fighting all these wars overseas for oil. And our energy sector would possibly go out of business as we know it. They'd have to make an honest living.
How can I help? How can I be useful in ending needless suffering? Do not be afraid of work that has no end.
We have to organize a social movement.
We have an opportunity to lead by example versus just talking, hot air. I think the more people in this fight, the more we grow. Eventually it could change. You know, the people are the ones that can make the change.
Welcome back to Change Agents, an Ironclad original presented by Montana Knife Company. Today's episode is a little bit different, mostly because we had a very limited amount of time with our guest today, Representative Tim Burchett, and we were talking about UAPs, which stands for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena. Mr. Burchett is a congressman for the 2nd District of Tennessee, and in 2023, he launched the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Caucus. In an interesting twist, a few weeks ago, specifically on March 8th, the DoD, or Department of Defense, replaced a lengthy report contradicting whistleblower reports of a crash, retrieval, and reverse engineering programs, saying that they found no verifiable evidence that any UAP sightings had represented extraterrestrial activity. What's the bottom line of this episode? Do aliens exist? Is the government hiding them from us? And if so, where are the little green men? Shall we begin? Let's just get to it. Is the U.S. government hiding aliens from us? And if so, where are they?
You want me to answer that?
Yes, of course I do. Everybody wants you to answer. We are recording.
Okay, great. Yeah, they're hiding something. They've spent tens of millions of dollars since 1947 Roswell. If you look up Roswell, New Mexico, the UFO thing, and it's interesting. Military intelligence comes out one day, literally issues a press release. It's in newspapers. Saucer recovered. Then next day they pull this poor colonel out, and he's got a hold of the remnants of something that looks like a hot air balloon and says, oh, we made a mistake. It was a balloon. You know, they just don't make mistakes like that. Military intelligence, to me, is like congressional ethics. I really don't think it exists, and for obvious reasons. And so, yeah, I think they're hiding something. They spent tens of millions of dollars. The Pentagon does not, then they've lost over $500 billion in assets. We audit them every year, and they've never passed an audit. And, you know, yeah, they spent, like I said, tens of millions of dollars on something, and then they issue these reports. They're just redacted. It looked like somebody shot it with a 12 gauge. And then they expect us to believe it. And they come out and, you know, some big shot a couple of weeks ago at the Pentagon comes out and says that, you know, oh, it's just a circular trail we're going in. This doesn't, you know, they're just one story and they're just refabricated. No, it's not one story. It's 1,000 different stories. I have people call my office daily, if not weekly, with stories. And, you know, I have military fighting men and women in airplanes, $50 million, $500 million aircraft, telling me this thing was within 14 feet of their canopy. We've got video of it. We're briefed on things that are secret that we're not allowed to talk about. And this chuck wagon tells us they don't exist and that we're all just a bunch of fools. And I doubt he's ever fired a shot in anger. He drives a four-legged mahogany.
What piqued your interest? Because in 2023, you launched the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Caucus. Could you explain what that is and what got you to the point of wanting to do that?
Well, I mean, it started when I was a kid. I had really cool parents that never tried to tamp down my curiosity. You know, I'd ride my bike or they'd drop me off the library, or as we say in East Tennessee, the library. And, you know, the librarians had these books lined up on this shit, you know, out. And one of them was on UFOs. And I picked it up and started reading about it and kind of fascinated me. I did a little research, and it's in the historical record. It's not, it's duplicated a lot. We've got, you know, biblical references. Ezekiel saw the wheel, first chapter of Genesis. God created the heavens and the earth. If you go out at night and see the stars, the light from those stars literally left there before the time of Christ. I mean, we are one grain in a billion beaches. You know, infinity is a long ways, brother. And so and then you fast forward, now I'm in Congress, and all they do is cover stuff up, and they do not tell us the truth. And then it just goes on and on. They say they're going to release a report. They release a report, or they delay it, and it's redacted. It's just a bunch of, it looks like a Swiss cheese. And then they tell us there's nothing in there. Well, then why don't you release some of the information that you spent these tens of millions of dollars on?
In your best guess,
Yeah,
what is the motivation behind the unwillingness to come clean? Do they think it would be just utter chaos in civilization? Do they think that people are literally not capable of handling the idea? I agree with you. My knowledge of the known universe I get from scientists, and if it's as big and as broad as they say, and as there's many stars and suns and solar systems, in my mind, mathematically, I'm like, okay, what are the odds that there's something else out there? Probably pretty high. I could accept that as a reality. Maybe a little bit scary if they flew like a battleship into our atmosphere, like the 4th of July movie or whatever, Independence Day. But why do you think they're so unwilling to just be completely transparent?
I think it's power, it's corruption, it's control, it's all those things that run this sewer we call Washington, D.C. And if they were to come out and say they were, if the Tic Tac videos, for instance, if you watch those, there's no heat signature. You know, you have something that's capable of some incredible aerodynamics that defy all of our current rules and laws that we know as being truthful. And they, I mean, you know, the Pentagon will be out of business. We wouldn't be fighting all these wars overseas for oil, and our energy sector would possibly go out of business as we know it. They'd have to make an honest living, and maybe there would be something close to world peace. I don't know. We'd always find something to fight about, but you know, I think it keeps the status quo, and it doesn't. And I'm a Christian. I'm a born again Christian. It doesn't bother me that there's something else out there. It doesn't. You know, because we always try to put God in this little box, and that's just not. They always say you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans for your life. I mean, it doesn't fit. And the arrogance of it, to think that we can't handle it, and they're, you know, you see these arrogant fools up here in Washington, D.C. all the time. I mean, they couldn't change the oil in their own cars, and yet they want to tell us how to live our lives, and we pay them incredible amounts of money, and they're deeply embedded in our government. So I think there's a lot to do with it. But I think part of it too is that it's so compartmentalized that so many, I mean, anybody who was around at Roswell, firsthand knowledge, is dead now, literally. So, I mean, that's the ultimate compartmentalization. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and, you know, I back up to Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And during the war, you know, they created the bomb, or one of them. And, you know, you had thousands of people worked over there, and maybe a half a dozen people in the whole thing knew what it was about. I met husbands and wives that didn't know. They both worked there, but they didn't know what the other one did. And that's because compartmentalization. We had honor. We trust people back then, and for good reason. And I've talked to former Navy folks that have been on ships that had a incredible sighting of something, of some craft. And we're told never to talk about this. This is national security, unless you want to go to Leavenworth and bust rocks the rest of your life. And so, and they believed it, and that's what they did. And so now, fast forward, all this information has been passed on, I think, to corporations that have contracts with the Pentagon but are not FOIA-able, which means Freedom of Information Act. They cannot seize their documents and put them out. So there's a long trail, and there's a lot of reasons why it's not out there. But I think America needs to know we pay a lot of money. I tell people it's not about little green men and flying saucers. I mean, ultimately, that's what we'll find out. But ultimately, we should want to know where all this money's going.
Yeah, good luck. Even in my own experience in the military, good luck following the breadcrumbs on where that goes.
Yeah, I know it, but I'm just hard-headed. Dad was an old World War II Marine, and Mama flew an airplane during the Second World War. So I kind of, hard-headedness is in my DNA. I told somebody, I was on one of these shows one time, and I told them, I said, I want y'all to know I'm not suffering from depression, and I will not be jumping off a cliff or shooting myself in the back of the head 6 times to commit suicide. I said, I'm because a lot of these people don't like folks like me.
I hope you are enjoying season 2 of Change Agents, which is an Ironclad original. And if you are a fan of the podcast, you know that we are presented by Montana Knife Company, which from where I am sitting right now is a short 2-hour drive, maybe 120 miles due south towards Missoula. I was first exposed to this brand through its founder, Josh Smith. And actually, when I first met him, I wasn't even aware of what Montana Knife Company was. He sat across the table from me. We had a conversation, and I have been a fan ever since. This was a few years ago, and the velocity and trajectory of that company is unbelievable. I directly associate that growth with who Josh is, what he stands for, and what he puts into his product. So a little bit more about Josh. He's been making knives for 30 years. They're made in the USA. They have a multi-generational warranty and free sharpening. They're design tested and they're built by hunters, and MKC's a hunting knife company first and foremost. They sell out their knives sometimes in under 60 seconds. And if you want to see what they have available or what's coming up, surf over to montanaknifecompany.com. They have a new knife drop every Thursday at 7 p.m. Here's what I'm going to say on that. Practice checking out. As ridiculous as that sounds, you need to have your credit card information loaded and practice the checkout process, because they go like that. I cannot even count the number of times I have had a knife taken from my cart because somebody was faster to purchase it than I was. People ask me all the time, what's my favorite blade of theirs? I go with the Mini Speedgo. It is my everyday carry knife. I don't use it for knife fighting. I use it for things that I need a knife for, so usually opening boxes. But it is my favorite blade, and if you're a fan of working knives made for working people, I highly suggest that you check out Montana Knife Company. And I'm going to add to that, let's talk a little bit about the warranty. They have the best warranty program in the industry. No matter if you bought the knife from them directly, or bought the knife from a friend, or it was gifted to you, or if you even found the knife, they're going to honor the warranty for the life of the blade. How awesome is that? Couldn't be more proud to have them as the presenting sponsor of Change Agents. They are a fantastic organization. Yeah. What do you think it would take for the government to actually come clean? What could force their hand in that?
If we have a commander-in-chief that has the guts to do what's right, ultimately, that's the bottom line. He can do it. He can say enough is enough, and he has all the clearances in the world. We're supposed to as congressmen, but I've been in situations where on this thing where they told us we couldn't. We had to force their hand. And at that point, you don't know what they're giving you, if it's legit or not.
I actually hadn't thought about it from that perspective. If they could do like a counter information operation campaign against those in the government, just to keep even those in the government guessing about what is real and what is not.
Yeah, I call it white flags. And that's why I'm really careful about information, because people will come to me with pictures, stories, things, and I'm afraid I'll come forward with it, and then it turns out this guy's just a big hoax. But But the truth is, if they were to take a lie detector test, they would think they're telling the truth because that's what through AI or whatever, whatever they've seen or what objects, what foreign matter is they say that they've analyzed, that it's been, it's been set up in a lab for them to fail. And then hoping that they will come forward and we'll chase that rabbit down a trail and make us all look fools. And they just go on about doing their business.
Yeah. Slightly off the UAP topic. I don't get a chance very often to talk to somebody who's working directly in our government. I'm just curious, you just came back from the Afghanistan hearing, which is, I'm sure, one of many things that you'll do today, let alone this week.
Yeah.
Are you hopeful or worried about the trajectory of our democratic republic?
I'm worried. I think we could lose everything. I see Marxism. I mean, you have openly Marxist members of Congress. You had them saying trying to reduce us to a 3-day workday, a mandatory pay of every American citizen, just a continuation of deficit spending. I mean, right now we take in a little under $5 trillion and we spend a little more than $7 trillion every year. It just doesn't work. I don't care what you say. You're at $35+ trillion in debt. And at some point you got to say, you've got willing fools, and then you've got people who are instigating it, people that stand to profit from it. And I think that's where we're at as a nation.
So I would almost combine the UAP in this, and to be respectful of your time, I know you have to go soon.
That's all right.
Yeah. There's the UAPs, and then what you're talking about, just the trajectory of our country. Combining both of those, you just have a concerned citizen who is, maybe the Marxist aspect is more compelling to them because they feel it in their workforce. Maybe the UAP aspect is more compelling to them because that's what they're drawn to. But you end up with people who want to do more, but they don't know what to do with that feeling.
Yeah.
I'm going to include myself in this. The government, I mean, I live in northwestern Montana, nowhere near Washington, D.C., where these decisions are made. You can easily fall into this place where you think, this is so big. There are so many people. Our government is so large. What can I possibly do? I am just a person. What would you say to that person, and how can they actually get involved if they wanted to?
I always tell my folks 2 things: pray for your country and vote. We don't vote. We got 12% or something that'll vote, and we gripe and moan and bitch about everything, but we just don't vote, and we don't educate ourselves. And if we do vote, we vote for president, and we don't vote for school board. We don't vote for, that's what happened during COVID. The one positive out of COVID was people started looking over their kids' shoulders about what they were learning in the classroom. They said, wait a minute, this isn't right. This isn't American history. This is some kind of revisionist thing. This isn't, this transgender BS that's being crammed down all these kids' throat. This is indoctrination and things like that. I think it exposed them to that, and it forced their hand on this stuff. And now they got to prove it. And in America, but the problem with America, and I'm guilty of this, is we want our pizzas in 30 minutes or less. And brother, that's about our dadgum attention span. We're moving on. This Afghanistan thing should have been dealt with. It's over 2 years now. Should have been dealt with over a year ago. We should have forced their hand on it then, called them in, said, why are we leaving these billions of dollars on the ground? Why are we leaving Americans on the ground? Why are we leaving our allies over there to be tortured and murdered? Just on down the line. But the problem is we don't hold any of these idiots accountable. And that's ultimately, that's our problem. We don't hold them accountable. The left understands that better than the conservatives do. And they got a long-term plan. And we think we win, we get Reagan in the White House, we quit. We get Trump in the White House, we quit. And it's just not, it just doesn't work. And the other side knows it. They can play the long game. They're playing chess and we're playing checkers, is the bottom line. And we've got to up our game. We've got to start getting involved all across the board. Get mad. I remember I called the head of the Southern Baptist Convention on an issue, and it doesn't matter, but because it's long gone now. And I warned them about what was going on. And I said, I live in the epicenter of the Bible Belt. I'm in East Tennessee, man. You can't sling a cat without hitting a Baptist church on the road I live on. much less anywhere else. And I warned him, and he said, well, that bill came up. I remember he said, but around Thanksgiving and Christmas. And he said, honestly, that's our busy time. And I said, well, brother, when they put a deadbolt lock on your doors, you're not going to be busy anymore. And that's what this is all about. And, and they're just ignorant, and they play this game, and they think, well, we'll just play nice. And, Jesus didn't ask them to leave the temple, brother. He threw them out. And we've got to start, as conservatives and people that believe in right and wrong, we've got to start standing our ground, whether it's on idiot Facebook or Twitter or whatever, X. Go after the media when they call you out. Don't let them get by with this stuff. And they say something in our schools. Our school systems now, not teachers, but parents who don't want pornography taught to their children, they're being labeled domestic terrorists, for goodness sakes. This is our own FBI that's doing this in official memos. This isn't something whispered at some water cooler. And how do we punish them? We're building them a new headquarters bigger than our Pentagon. And you know what they'll do with that building? They'll fill it. They will fill it with bureaucrats. And we got to get some guts. In the House, we don't, I say, if we don't have a border, shut the government down. We got to get some guts. We got to play hardball. And that's the only thing this other side understands, because they do it. But the problem is we don't, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, they're not nice to us. I don't care. My dad told me right before he died, he was down there at the Veterans Nursing Home, and I was county mayor, and I'd gotten into it on an issue, and there was editorials about me in a front page article. And Daddy grunted out he'd had this massive stroke, and it wasn't long before he met the Lord after that. But he said, "They on you?" And I said, "Yeah, Daddy, they are." He said, "Do you really want that bunch for you?" And I thought, wow, that's pretty profound, No,
it's an
I
interesting
don't.
way to turn that on its head and look at it.
Yeah, I don't want that bunch for me. And if they were for me, I know I'd be doing something wrong. So does it wear me out? Yeah. Do I worry about it? Absolutely. I stay awake at night worrying about that aspect of where our country's headed. But unless people like you and me don't get off the bench and start slugging it out with them, we're going to lose.
Fair enough. And honestly, that might be the best ending ever. Just be respectful of your time, put you in that 20 minutes. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, sir. And I'll let you go back to reorienting the direction of our government single-handedly.
Yeah, well, sometimes it feels like it. Thank you for what you did for our country, brother. I really appreciate you.
That was my pleasure. Most of it, the vast majority was my pleasure. Some of it sucked.
I would say basic training and listen to some knucklehead yelling at you that drove a four-legged mahogany probably wasn't the greatest, but I appreciate it.
If this episode got you asking questions like, what is the government hiding from me and why would they want to? Well, you can learn more about Mr. Burchett's work and efforts to force government disclosure at UAPcaucus.com. That is UAP, Uniform Alpha Papa Caucus.com. Thank you again for listening to Change Agents, an Ironclad original presented by Montana Knife Company. See you next week with an all-new episode.